we in Massachusetts are so lucky to have David and Rita and to have had them have the vision to get us involved.
The vision that they had made a big change in my life, and I think in the lives of a number of people, and probably a number of clients too.
So I was one of the people who got one of the original letters from David and Rita. I actually didn't know David very well, and I had a case with Rita, but didn't know her very well either. And I remember being very surprised about getting the letter because I wasn't sure why I got it, or even how they really knew me. So it caught my attention. Of course, when I read the letter, I was very excited about what was in it. I was in a place in my practice where I was looking for something that was in between mediation and litigation. I had clients who really didn't want to litigate, but really weren't appropriate for mediation. I had mediation clients for whom the mediation hadn't really worked. They still didn't want to go to court, and there really weren't any alternatives. So when David sent out that letter about exploring this new concept of collaborative law, I thought, wow, this sounds like that might fit that spot that I was kind of looking for. And I remember we all met at the firm that David was with at the time. A very interesting group of excited people, some of whom I knew, some of whom I didn't know. And we all pitched in, I think it was like $150 to pay Pauline Tesler to come out and train us. So we got trained in collaborative law, and the Collaborative Law Council followed that. We did our first training after that. None of us had a single case, so we were always hoping no one would ask us about the cases we hadn't had yet. But it was a really incredible group of committed people. But what was so important about it, I think, is David and Rita, both of whom are visionaries in all the work they do. They are people who have been at the frontiers of practice, and their sending of that letter and ultimately bringing collaborative law to Massachusetts, I think, just was an amazing thing to do for all of us in family law, and obviously for people in other areas of practice where collaborative law has expanded into.
And there was a one-day collaborative law practice training offered by MCLE. And so I attended that training, and I remember feeling an enormous aha moment during the training because I felt like I had finally found a way to practice law that resonated with my values and who I am as a person and the skills that I intuitively have, and an opportunity to really hone in on them. So that's how I learned about it. And that was in 2001. I think it was the second training.
You know, I can tell lots of stories, tons of stories, but I did get that original letter, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it did change my life, my practice, and even my personal life. So I'm very grateful to Rita and David for their vision and their foresight in bringing it in and including me, who I actually didn't know them at the time. So I'd heard of them, but I didn't know them. So I was surprised, but grateful to be included.
And so I went to a meeting, and David was there, and Rita was there, and a bunch of other people were there. And I just thought that the work was terrific. Non-litigious approach to resolving disputes. I'd done a lot of couples work. And so I thought this, if it couldn't help people stay together, then I could participate in a process that helped them come apart with respect and dignity and protection of families. I thought this was something I was interested in.
Well, I certainly remember being excited getting that letter. I'd heard about collaborative law at a maybe it was a mediation conference, and there was information given out from a Minnesota group, of course, and I was very intrigued by it. I think there are always people that have visions, and I know that Rita and David are two people like that, and the vision that they had made a big change in my life, and I think in the lives of a number of people, and probably a number of clients too.
Had cases with both Rita and David. And what makes them stand out from some of their colleagues is they don't just talk the talk, they walk the talk.
Watching it all evolve and start with David and Rita has been just, I have felt so lucky. I mean, you know, the concept of luck counts. I think I was lucky to have been in the right place at the right time, to have actually met David and then been introduced to collaborative law that way. And I knew right away that it was something I wanted to get involved with.
As to David, I've always held David as sort of like up there on a pedestal, along with like the John Fisks of the world. One of the things that I've always found amazing about David is that I saw him at a conference one time where he was presenting. This is, 25 years ago. And I tend to talk a lot at conferences and ask a lot of questions. And so I went up to him afterwards and I'm talking and I said to him, I was just a pretty young lawyer at the time. I mean, I did not have that much, I think it must have been like 25 years ago or more. And I said, boy, it'd be really fun to do a workshop together. And he said, sure, let's do it. And I'm like, who am I? I'm just like this young lawyer. I don't know shit. So we did, and it was. So I was just always been impressed by his humility, despite the fact that he's just really up there in terms of kind of all the work that he does. He's somebody I always look up to.
And it was interesting. David and I got in a fight the first meeting because he wanted to sit with his client and said, John, you got to sit on the other side of the table with your client. This was at Hill and Barlow. And it wasn't a very good meeting. So I told the husband, look, you and your wife are going to sit on the same side next time. And David and I will be on the other side. And David agreed to that. And it was a much better meeting. And even though it's not what we usually do, usually we like to sit on the same side of the table as our clients. So it was very unusual, but he not only was flexible, but he was also humble. It should be told only as a tribute to David's appreciation for what the clients want and for being flexible about the role that the lawyer should play in the client's life. So we're lucky to have David involved in our lives.
I had a collaborative law case with David that he always talks about how amazing it was that the last meeting, at the end of the meeting, the couple wanted someone at BLC to take a picture of the four of us together, and that he had never experienced that kind of trust in the process and collaboration from the spouses themselves. I just feel so blessed to have known them throughout my entire collaborative law career. They have both been incredible mentors, role models, such visionaries about this movement, and each of them in their own way has powerfully contributed to my growth as a collaborative attorney. Having trained with Rita for so many years, I really learned some excellent training skills from her. I'm still in touch with her. And when I told her I was moving to Los Angeles and I wanted to develop a new practice that focused on communication coaching and facilitation of difficult conversations and developing and training and doing workshops that are all oriented toward communication and conflict management, she was so supportive. She checks in with me. She invited me to do a presentation on communication, coaching, and mediation.
Reached out both to David and to Rita in different capacities to help me get through that. And they were both wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I asked David to be the keynote speaker at the forum, and there was no hesitation, immediate yes. And I would say that his program was one of the best received that we've had in a long time. People are still talking about it to some degree because it was so well done. And he has also been just so generous with his time for the whole organization. But specifically, I felt like even though he was helping IACP, he was doing me a huge favor, and I really appreciated it. And Rita also has stepped up in many ways when she knew, because she's in Arizona and I was in Phoenix at the time working with IACP. She invited me down hosted me to meet somebody that she thought would be helpful. We had a wonderful lunch, working lunch, and this person did go on to help the board. It's part of their reorganization and sort of reconnection. So she's a wonderful resource, amazing support.
I had a marvelous experience working with Rita all through this process. Rita has a great vision and she has enormous motivation internal to make things happen. When she put on the Boston International Collaborative Law Conference, she had such clarity about what she wanted to have happen. And what she can do is she makes it happen. I can think of one case in which I was involved with Rita. And at the end, both parties were crying, hugging each other, and they just said, we did here what we couldn't do at the end of our marriage. And we are so grateful.
Rita is a visionary. There's no question in my mind. She is a visionary, and she's a teacher. She supports individuals. She supports the organization and the collaborative practice itself. She is amazing to work with, and I've learned so much from her.
My hope is that collaborative law will continue to be a very important ADR tool and that it will evolve.
And so we are connecting more with mediators, which is fantastic, trying to figure out what is best for the clients and going with that regardless of any kind of didactic, constraints, I think is benefiting collaborative practice. It's benefiting the world of dispute resolution, and it's benefiting our clients tremendously. And it helps us too.
The biggest, most powerful benefits and contributions I think collaborative law has to that is that we function very differently as a team compared to how other professionals function within a legal process. And we also model and really help our clients learn new ways to communicate and get through difficult conversations. And I think if the collaborative movement can continue to be a leader and part of that with other movements that are oriented in the same direction with the same values and the same goals, I think we will be part of changing the way people and the world and nations and cultures and races and everyone interacts. And I think the time has come for that.
I remember in the Netherlands, some guy stood up and he said, I think I found my slippers. You mean I won't have to fight all the time? And they're not on, it was just incredibly moving. At the beginning in the Netherlands, they would come up like this and they'd stay very far apart and shake your hand. And by the end, we were all hugging.
And I feel like I've gained lots of good colleagues and friends from the collaborative law movement in Massachusetts, and continue to work with them. I continue to do some work with Rita. Continue to love hearing about the work that David's doing. They are still at the forefront. So I want to congratulate them on this award. They are truly well deserving. And this is a small thing that we can do for them, but I think they deserve much more. But I'm so happy that the Mass Collaborative Law Council is honoring them for really spearheading and having the vision to bring this to Massachusetts and to all of us.
So to have the collaborative community where people are genuinely colleagues and genuinely work together has made a huge difference for me professionally. It wasn't a really happy time when things were really at their worst, in my opinion, and I really gave some thought to making some changes. And this came up, and it was the perfect change because it kept me in the legal community, but in a really positive way. So I'm very grateful to Rita and David for bringing it here to Massachusetts and for sharing it and supporting it throughout the years.
Yeah, I am very grateful to Rita and to David for really spearheading this because it made a big difference in my life. David and Rita were really the catalyst for creating the possibility, which I jumped on, of making the last 20 years of my career be probably a lot more satisfying than it might otherwise have been. And that really enriched my life as a lawyer, and therefore enriched my life.
So well deserved. They are like the mother and father of MCLC.
We in Massachusetts are so lucky to have David and Rita and to have had them have the vision to get us involved. One little sort of vignette that does include both David and Rita. It used to be back in those very early days, I went to every single IACP meeting. And if you were from Massachusetts, you were a rock star. It's like Massachusetts, oh my goodness, you guys are so ahead of the curve. And it was really great. And we really, truly have David and Rita to thank for that. A lot of states didn't have visionaries the way we do. So thank you, David and Rita.